Chapter 1. The Attachment Trap. Attachment is the prison. Freedom begins when we see the bars. At the core of much human suffering lies one quiet but powerful force: attachment. Attachment is the mind's habit of clinging to people, outcomes, identities, or possessions, as if our sense of worth and stability depends on them. We confuse having with being, and in doing so, we chain our peace to things beyond our control. There is nothing wrong with love, connection, or ambition. The problem arises when those connections become rigid, when losing them threatens our very sense of self. This is where suffering begins. The awakened path doesn't ask us to stop caring. It asks us to care without clinging, to relate without losing ourselves. It is the difference between healthy connection, which is grounded in presence and respect, and attachment, which is driven by fear, control, or a sense of lack.
Case study: losing self in success. James, a successful entrepreneur, spent a decade building his dream company. His identity was deeply woven into his achievements, his title, income, and public recognition. But when an economic downturn forced him to close the business, James felt like he had lost himself. Not just a job or income, himself. Depression followed, along with shame and isolation. Without his role as a successful founder, who was he? Only after months of inner work did James begin to realize it wasn't the business that created his suffering, it was his attachment to it. The business had become his mirror. Without it, he couldn't see his own value. But as he learned to separate his identity from outcomes, he began to rediscover a deeper, more stable sense of self.
Practical exercise: the attachment inventory. Take 10 to 15 minutes to reflect and journal. List 3 things, people, or roles you fear losing. Examples: a relationship, job, social identity, physical appearance. For each one, ask yourself, what do I believe this gives me? Who would I be without it? Is my worth truly dependent on it? Gently notice if your answer is rooted in fear, love, or freedom. This exercise isn't about giving things up. It's about loosening the grip of fear-based clinging. Summary: attachments aren't bad. They're just unconscious. But when we mistake our temporary possessions, relationships, or roles for our true identity, we become trapped in a cycle of fear and suffering. Freedom begins by seeing the trap. The first step toward liberation is awareness, noticing where you cling and choosing to soften your grip. In awakening, we learn that nothing real can be lost, and who we truly are does not need to hold on to anything to be whole.
Chapter 2. The Illusion of Control. True strength lies in surrendering the need to control what cannot be controlled. One of the most persistent illusions we carry is the belief that we are in control of life. We try to manage outcomes, people's behavior, our emotions, even the future, believing that if we just try hard enough, we can make things go our way. But control is a comfort blanket stitched with fear, and the tighter we hold on, the more life seems to slip through our fingers. True strength is not in control, but in surrender. Surrender is not passivity or giving up. It's the courageous act of releasing the need to manipulate outcomes and trusting in the deeper intelligence of life. To surrender means to show up fully, do our part, and then let go of how things unfold. It means learning to respond, not react,
to support, not dominate. And it means understanding that our peace doesn't depend on what happens, but on how we relate to what happens.
Real-life example. Letting a child grow. Mira, a mother of two, had always been deeply involved in her daughter Layla's life, from her schoolwork to her friendships to her future plans. She believed it was love, but over time, she began to see that her guidance had become pressure, and her daughter had grown distant and anxious. After a difficult conversation, Mira realized that her efforts to control were actually rooted in fear, not love. She feared that if she didn't step in, things would fall apart. So she started letting go, one step at a time. Instead of giving advice, she listened. Instead of managing, she trusted. And something beautiful happened. Layla began to flourish, not because Mira controlled her journey, but because she supported it from a place of presence and trust. Practical exercise, the control detox. For one full day, try this radical experiment. Do not try to control any outcome. If someone is late, don't rush them. If a task changes, adapt rather than resist. Let conversations unfold without steering them. At the end of the day, journal. How did it feel to release control? What surprised you? What felt uncomfortable? What felt freeing? You may be amazed at how much energy is normally spent on trying to manage life and how much peace arrives when you stop. Summary. Control is a cage dressed as safety, but life was never meant to be gripped. It was meant to be lived. When we stop forcing, we begin flowing. When we release expectations, we open to wisdom. And when we surrender, we don't become powerless, we become present. Peace is not the result of control, it's the gift of surrender. Chapter 3. The Ego's Grip. When the ego softens, the vastness of being expands. The ego is the master storyteller of the self, a voice in the mind that constantly says, "This is who I am, this is what I deserve, or this is how others should see me." It builds its identity through labels, roles, achievements, and memories, clinging to a fixed sense of me. But this me is fragile. It's always needing validation, defense, or proof of worth. And because life is fluid and ever-changing, the ego lives in a constant state of tension, always protecting, comparing, or craving. The deeper truth is this: you are not your ego, you are the awareness observing it. The more we identify with the ego's voice, the more we suffer. But when we observe it, instead of obeying it, the grip loosens and a wider sense of being opens.
Case study: creating without the crowd. Amira was a talented artist who lived for praise. When her early work went viral online, she soared. But when later projects received less attention, she spiraled into self-doubt. Her creativity froze. Through mentorship and inner work, Amira began to see how her ego had fused art with identity. If they love my work, I'm worthy. If they don't, I'm nothing. She committed to creating from presence instead of performance. Slowly, the validation hook softened. Her art became freer, more authentic. And ironically, as she detached from applause, her work deepened and connection followed naturally. She stopped creating for approval and began creating from awareness.
Practical exercise, the ego observer. For one full day, carry a small notebook or use your phone. Each time you catch a thought that begins with, "My story is," "I need them too," or "If I don't have, be, or do block, I'm not enough," gently write it down.
No judgment, just awareness. At the end of the day, review. Are these stories empowering or limiting? Who are you without those stories? This practice builds the muscle of witnessing, which is the beginning of freedom. Summary: the ego isn't your enemy, it's just a mistaken identity. When you stop gripping your stories, roles, and validations, a new spaciousness opens up. That space is your true self, not the voice, but the one who hears it. When the ego softens, being expands. And from that space, peace arises, not because you've achieved anything, but because you stopped pretending to be anything other than awareness itself. Chapter 4: Emotional Clutter and Inner Space. Clearing emotional clutter invites the spaciousness where presence can grow. We often think of clutter as physical, closets overflowing, drawers stuffed. But the heaviest clutter we carry isn't in our homes, it's in our hearts and minds. Unresolved emotions, grudges, guilt, sadness, resentment occupy inner space. They become emotional static, making it difficult to hear the deeper voice of clarity and peace. Like old boxes in an attic, we store these feelings out of sight, but they still weigh us down. And just like physical clutter, emotional clutter keeps us stuck in the past. The paradox? Emptiness is not loss, it's liberation. When we clear emotional debris, we don't become hollow. We become available for presence, for joy, for life. Real-life example: clearing the past room by room. David was a retired teacher known for his generosity, but few knew he lived surrounded by piles of belongings, old lesson plans, childhood toys, even newspapers from decades ago. Beneath the surface was a deeper truth. David was holding on to more than objects. He was holding on to grief after losing his wife 15 years earlier. When he finally sought help and began clearing his space, the emotional layers surfaced. Each item brought a memory and a wave of feeling he had never processed. But with every bag he released, something shifted inside. He began journaling, grieving, and eventually forgiving himself for not moving on sooner. Clearing his home became a sacred ritual, and as the space opened around him, he discovered a peace he'd long forgotten, an inner spaciousness.
Practical exercise, mental declutter. Write and burn ritual for releasing emotional clutter. Take a quiet moment and write a letter to someone you're still emotionally tied to, maybe someone who hurt you, or a version of yourself you haven't forgiven. Let it be honest, raw, unfiltered. When you're finished, read it aloud if you're ready. Then burn it safely or tear it up. As the paper turns to ash, notice what softens in you. Letting go is not forgetting, it's freeing. Summary: just as we clean our homes, we must clear our hearts. Emotional clutter, old pain, regret, blame, blocks the flow of presence. It ties us to stories that no longer serve. To release is to make space. To make space is to invite peace. And in that peace, we begin to live, not as who we were, but as who we truly are. Your spaciousness is your sanctuary. Chapter 5: The Power of Radical Acceptance. Acceptance is the end of the war with reality. We often believe peace comes from changing our circumstances, but true peace arises not from control, but from acceptance.
Radical acceptance means saying yes to the present moment, even when it's uncomfortable. It's not passivity or defeat. It's the courage to stop resisting reality as it is. Most suffering doesn't come from pain itself. It comes from our fight against it. We don't need to like everything that happens, but we can stop arguing with life. In that surrender, something unexpected happens. Freedom. Case study: finding peace in the unchangeable. Maria was a vibrant woman in her early 40s when she was diagnosed with terminal cancer. At first, she fought fiercely, researching every possible cure, clinging to hope with white-knuckled determination. But the anxiety never left her. Her body was exhausted, and her mind was in constant turmoil. One day, during a quiet conversation with a hospice nurse, something clicked. The nurse simply said, "What if peace isn't found in fighting this, but in being with it?" Maria began to slow down. She stopped chasing answers and started feeling her days. She noticed the wind through her window. She wrote letters to her children. She laughed more, cried more, and softened into what was. She died a few months later, not in fear, but in grace. She said to her sister, "I didn't beat cancer, but I found something better. I stopped resisting life."
Practical exercise, the sacred pause. The next time you feel discomfort, physical pain, emotional irritation, anxiety, pause. Take a slow, deep breath. Gently say to yourself, "This is what's here." Feel the sensation without judgment or escape. Breathe into it. Let it be. You're not trying to fix it, just allowing it to exist. This sacred pause is a doorway. It shifts you from reaction to presence. Summary: radical acceptance is not giving up, it's waking up. When we stop resisting the moment, we stop suffering. Acceptance doesn't change the outer world, it changes our relationship to it. And in that shift, we discover that even in the hardest moments, peace is possible. Not later, but now. To accept is to come home to reality and to yourself.
Chapter 6. From Seeking to Finding. What you seek is already within you. Stillness is home. We live in a world that glorifies the seeker, the one chasing goals, truth, enlightenment, and self-improvement. And yet, the irony of the spiritual path is this: the more you seek, the more you affirm that something is missing. Seeking begins from the assumption that you are not enough as you are, that peace, wisdom, or wholeness lies somewhere else. But awakening doesn't come from accumulating, it comes from being. The truth is simple but easily overlooked. Stillness is not the absence of growth, it's where growth deepens. The shift from seeker to finder is the moment you stop chasing and start allowing.
The Still Traveler. Elena was a travel blogger who had spent 5 years hopping from country to country, always searching for the next breathtaking place, the next story to tell. Her followers loved her adventurous spirit, but inside she felt exhausted and strangely disconnected. During a quiet winter in a small cottage in Norway, stuck indoors due to snowstorms, Elena couldn't go anywhere. At first, she panicked. No movement, no content, no outer novelty. Then something shifted. She began taking slow walks in the snow, drinking tea without distraction, journaling with no intention of sharing. and for the first time in years, she felt still and fulfilled. Later she wrote, "All those years of running around the world, I didn't realize I was circling something I already had. It was always here, inside."
Practical exercise, the not-seeking day. Today, do nothing to improve yourself. Don't read for growth. Don't meditate for progress. Don't chase insight. Just be. Notice the urge to get somewhere spiritually. Instead of following it, smile and rest. Breathe, eat, sit, feel. Let this moment be enough. Summary: seeking can be a beautiful beginning, but eventually it becomes the very thing that blocks us from seeing what's here. The moment you stop chasing is the moment you find what was never missing. You are not becoming whole, you already are.
Chapter 7. Suffering as your teacher. Suffering loses its power when you stop clinging to relief. Suffering is often seen as something to avoid, fix, or run from. But in truth, suffering is one of our greatest teachers, not because pain is noble, but because it exposes where we are still clinging, resisting, or asleep. Attachment is the root of most suffering, to who we think we should be, to what we believe we must have, to how life should unfold. But when we meet suffering with awareness instead of resistance, something remarkable happens. It transforms. What we avoid imprisons us. What we meet with presence liberates us. Suffering becomes the fire that forges wisdom, softness, humility, and depth.
Case study: relapse as awakening. James had struggled with addiction for years. He was sober for over a year when a stressful event triggered a relapse. Crushed by shame, he almost gave up on recovery entirely. But something shifted. Instead of judging himself, he did something radical. He stayed present. He observed the thoughts of self-hatred, the guilt, the craving. He didn't feed them. He just noticed. He journaled one sentence: "This pain is showing me where I still don't love myself." That relapse became the turning point. He began to work not just on sobriety, but on healing the pain beneath the addiction. Years later, he calls that relapse the crack where the light got in.
Practical exercise. Why this serves me. Think of a current struggle or emotional pain. Ask yourself, what is this teaching me that comfort could not? Write down, what attachment is being threatened or exposed? What belief is breaking down? What new strength or insight is quietly forming? When we stop demanding quick relief, we open to deeper revelation. Summary: suffering, when resisted, becomes unbearable. But suffering, when met with openness, becomes transformative. It reveals what you cling to and invites you to let go. And when you do, you don't just escape pain, you awaken.
Chapter 8. The Art of Non-Attached Action. Freedom is found in doing without attachment to results. In a world obsessed with achievement, it's easy to confuse attachment with commitment. But true mastery, whether in art, sport, work, or life, emerges when action is taken without clinging to results. This is the essence of non-attached action. You show up fully, but you don't grip the outcome. You pour your heart into the process, but you let go of how it's received. This is what ancient wisdom calls right action, doing what is true, not what is guaranteed to succeed. Attachment to outcomes creates pressure, fear, and burnout. Non-attachment creates flow, peace, and power. Letting go, breaking through.
Lena was a professional sprinter who trained obsessively for years. Her mind was locked on medals and rankings. But no matter how hard she pushed, her performance plateaued. Anxiety choked her before every race. Then came an injury, forcing her to step away and reevaluate everything. In recovery, she began running again, but this time just to feel her body move. No stopwatch, no mental scoreboard, just presence. Months later, she returned to competition with less mental pressure and more freedom. She didn't just improve, she broke her personal best. "When I stopped chasing the win," she said, "I remembered why I started."
Practical exercise, detached doing. Today, choose one simple task, something ordinary. Maybe it's cooking, writing, cleaning, drawing. Now, do it with zero expectation. Don't try to impress. Don't try to finish quickly. Don't measure success. Just be there, fully immersed in the doing, not the result. Feel what changes in your body, your mood, your energy. Summary: non-attached action isn't apathy. It's sacred engagement, devotion without demand. When you act from alignment instead of outcome, you reclaim your freedom, your joy, and your power. Do for the love of doing. Let go of what comes next. Chapter 9. Embodying Presence. Your body is the gateway to the eternal now. Presence isn't just a mental state, it's a living, breathing experience that begins in the body. We often think of awakening as a shift in thought, but true presence lives deeper in sensation, breath, and movement. Your body is not a distraction from awareness, it is a portal into it. In moments of anxiety, disconnection, or overwhelm, it is the body, not the mind, that brings us back. The present moment isn't a concept, it's a vibration, and your body is already vibrating now. When you anchor attention in the body, you return to what's real, what's here, what's alive. Case study: walking toward wholeness. After a traumatic event, Ava found it difficult to sit still. Traditional meditation made her feel trapped in her mind. A therapist introduced her to walking meditation, not as an escape, but as an entryway back into her body. Each step became a prayer, each breath a return. Over time, Ava noticed something radical. Her anxiety softened, her memories hurt less, and she felt a new safety, not in thought, but in her skin. She says now, "It wasn't thinking that healed me, it was feeling my feet on the ground again." Practical exercise, body anger scan. When you feel triggered, overwhelmed, or ungrounded, pause. Bring your awareness to your feet. Feel them touching the earth. Then shift to your hands. Notice texture, warmth, subtle energy. Stay here for 1 to 2 minutes. Breathe deeply. Let your body become your anchor, not your battleground. Summary: your body is not separate from your awakening. It is the doorway. In a world that lives in its head, presence begins when we return to sensation. The body never leaves the now, only the mind does. To live awake, don't just think presence, embody it. Chapter 10. Living as the unattached witness. You are the sky. Thoughts, feelings, and attachments are passing weather. At the core of awakening is a radical shift in identity, from being the thinker to being the witness of thought, from being the storm to being the sky it moves through. This witness is not cold detachment, it is pure awareness, calm, clear, and deeply compassionate. You are not your thoughts. You are the one who sees them come and go. When you stop grasping at or resisting experience, a deeper intelligence takes over, one that knows what to do, when to act, and how to love without clinging. Real-life example: justice with presence. Elena, a senior judge known for her sharp intellect, once confessed, "I used to carry every case home in my heart like a wound." Over the years, this attachment to outcomes wore her down emotionally. A meditation retreat changed her approach. She began practicing choiceless awareness, not reacting to emotions, but observing them with openness. Now she presides with more clarity and inner steadiness. She still cares deeply, but no longer drowns in the stories. Justice, she says, is clearest when I witness, not when I wrestle. Practical exercise. Thought stream observation. Sit comfortably. Close your eyes. Visualize yourself sitting beside a flowing river. Each thought that arises, imagine placing it on a leaf, letting it float downstream. Watch without judgment. No clinging, no pushing away. Do this for 5 to 10 minutes daily. Let awareness watch without needing to fix.
You are not what changes. You are what notices the change. In every moment, you can return to this witnessing presence, not to escape life, but to meet it fully awake. You are the sky. Everything else is just weather. True freedom is not found in control, detachment, or outcomes. It is found in being the unattached witness, living from the stillness that never leaves. Epilogue: Awakening as the endless horizon. Awakening is not a final destination, but a lifelong unfolding, like watching the horizon shift as you walk toward it. Each chapter of this journey invites you to step deeper into presence, freedom, and love. You've explored how attachment, ego, and mental noise keep you bound, and how surrender, compassion, and witness open the door to your true nature. Remember, you are not alone. This path connects you to the great web of life, where every moment is an opportunity to awaken anew. Carry this truth with you. Beneath all passing storms, you are the vast, unshakable sky. Keep returning to your own awareness. Keep living as the unattached witness. Keep embracing life with a heart wide open. Your awakening is not just your liberation, it is the awakening of the world itself.